The millionaire decides to return home earlier than usual and is greeted by the housekeeper, who, trembling, says, "Please don't say anything." Suspicious, he walks silently down the hall, and when he opens the bedroom door, his world collapses at the sight before him. It was almost 5 in the afternoon when Nathan Keller pulled into the driveway of his house, the one tucked behind tall gates in a quiet neighborhood just outside of the city. His silver SUV came to a slow stop in front of the garage, and he sat there for a few seconds with the engine still running, drumming his fingers on the steering wheel. The business trip to Chicago had been canceled last minute due to a storm, and instead of flying out tomorrow morning, he'd ended up on a direct flight home that landed just after lunch. He didn't call ahead. He figured it would be a fun surprise for Emily. They hadn't had much time together lately, and he missed her. The last couple weeks had been full of meetings and boardroom stress. Coming home early felt like the right move, a little spontaneous, something that might make her smile. The first thing he noticed when he stepped out of the car was how quiet everything was. That wasn't totally unusual. Their house was big, and Emily usually spent the afternoons reading upstairs or at the gym. But today, something felt different. Not quiet like peaceful, quiet like empty. Even the birds in the trees seemed to be holding their breath. Nathan walked up to the front door and let himself in, tossing his suitcase by the coat rack. The air inside smelled faintly of lavender and lemon polish, like it always did. The lights were off. Sunlight spilled through the tall windows and lit up the entryway, casting soft shadows across the floor. He set his keys on the table and called out, "Emily?" Nothing. He waited a beat, then tried again, louder this time. Still nothing. He figured maybe she'd stepped out for groceries or was in the shower. No big deal. He took a few steps further in, his shoes thudding softly against the hardwood. That's when he saw Sarah, the housekeeper, standing near the hallway, holding a folded blanket in her arms. She looked up at him so fast it made her jump. Her face went pale, and the blanket nearly slipped out of her hands. She wasn't just surprised to see him. She looked shaken, nervous in a way that made no sense at all. "Mr. Keller," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You weren't supposed to be back until tomorrow. I caught an earlier flight," he said, walking toward her. "Everything okay?" She looked behind her, then back at him, eyes wide. "Please," she said, taking a few quick steps in his direction and lowering her voice even more. "Be quiet. Don't say anything, please. Just follow me." He stared at her, completely confused. "What's going on?" She didn't answer. She looked scared, like something was seriously wrong, like he'd walked into something he wasn't supposed to see. That feeling from outside came rushing back. Something wasn't right. He could feel it in his gut now. Sarah didn't wait for him to agree. She turned and started walking fast down the hallway toward the back of the house. Nathan followed her, heartbeat starting to pick up. His shoes felt too loud on the floor, and every step echoed in his chest. The hallway was long and dim, the thick curtains pulled halfway across the windows. As they passed the dining room and the staircase, he kept looking at Sarah's back, waiting for her to stop and tell him something. But she didn't. She just kept walking, one hand clenched around the blanket, the other brushing against the wall for balance. She moved like someone who had just seen something they wished they hadn't. They were halfway down the hall when he heard it. Faint at first, then a little clearer as they approached the master bedroom. Voices. He stopped walking. There was a low hum of conversation mixed with laughter. A man's voice, deep and relaxed. A woman's voice, soft and giggling. Nathan froze in place, his mind racing. That was his bedroom. Their bedroom. Why was there laughter coming from in there? He turned to Sarah, and she didn't say a word. She just stood there with that same look on her face, afraid and unsure. But now he saw it differently. She wasn't afraid for herself. She was afraid for him. Nathan took a deep breath and walked past her. The closer he got to the door, the clearer the voices became. It wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable. He could make out bits of teasing laughter between breaths. It wasn't a conversation between strangers or old friends catching up. It was personal, intimate. The doorknob was just ahead. His hand hovered over it for a moment. His fingers were shaking. He couldn't believe what his body was telling him to do. He didn't want to open that door. Everything inside him screamed to turn around, to walk away, to pretend he hadn't heard anything at all, but his feet stayed planted. He twisted the knob slowly and pushed. The door opened without a sound. The sunlight from the hallway spilled into the room, and everything happened in slow motion. There, tangled in sheets and skin, were Emily and another man. His brain barely registered anything beyond the shapes and voices and skin at first, but then, like a slow stab to the chest, the man's face turned toward him. A grin froze mid-laugh. It was Luke, his own brother. Time stopped. The air felt heavy, pressing down on his chest. Nathan couldn't breathe. He couldn't move. He couldn't think. Luke stared at him with wide eyes. Emily scrambled to cover herself, shouting his name, her face contorting into panic. But Nathan didn't hear the words. Everything was muffled, distant. He stood there, rooted to the floor, staring at the two people he trusted most in the world, wrapped up in betrayal on the bed he'd shared with his wife. His jaw clenched, and his mouth went dry. His heart pounded like it was trying to break out of his chest. He took one step back, then another, as if walking away would make it untrue. He turned and walked down the hall, faster with every step, not looking at Sarah, not looking at anything. His world didn't just shift, it collapsed. He grabbed his keys and left the house without another word. He didn't even remember getting in the car. He just drove. Nathan didn't know how long he'd been driving. Time meant nothing. He wasn't heading anywhere, just turning whenever he felt like it. Windows down, the cool air hitting his face but doing nothing to clear his head. His hands gripped the wheel tight, knuckles white. His jaw hurt from clenching it. Every time he blinked, he saw the same thing. The bedroom door opening, the blanket pulled halfway up, his brother's bare shoulder, Emily's face when she saw him standing there. Shock, guilt, panic. He'd never forget that look. It was burned into his mind. He pulled into a random parking lot behind a strip mall and just sat there. His eyes were wide open, but he wasn't seeing anything. His chest felt tight. His stomach twisted. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. It was worse than that. He felt empty, like someone had ripped out everything inside of him and left the shell behind. After a while, his phone buzzed. He didn't check it. He already knew who it was. He could guess what the text said. It's not what it looked like. Please talk to me. Let me explain. None of it mattered. No message could fix what he saw with his own eyes. He sat there until the sky started to change, soft pink and gold streaks mixing with the fading blue. He hadn't even realized it was getting late. The only thing he knew for sure was that he couldn't go back there. Not yet. Not until he could breathe again. Eventually, he ended up at one of his construction sites. It was quiet, just an unfinished building with beams sticking out of the ground and tools left under tarps. He got out of the car and climbed up the frame of the future office building like he'd done 100 times before, back when the company was smaller, and he used to be on site every day. He sat down on one of the concrete slabs on the second floor and looked out at the city lights in the distance. He stayed there a long time. When the sun came up, he felt numb. His shirt was wrinkled and his back hurt from the cold concrete, but he didn't care. He just wanted to feel something other than this giant hole inside of him. He climbed back down, got into the car again, and headed home. He didn't plan on saying anything. He just wanted to get his things. Maybe a bag, his laptop. He didn't know what he needed. He just needed to be away from there. The house was quiet again, but this time, it wasn't the same kind of quiet. It was heavy. He opened the door slowly and walked in. His shoes hit the floor louder than usual. Everything felt louder. His breath, his footsteps, the small creak of the front door closing behind him. She was in the kitchen. Emily, still in a robe, eyes puffy like she hadn't slept. She was sitting at the table with a cup of tea or coffee in her hands, but her fingers were barely wrapped around it. She looked up as he walked in. Her mouth opened, but she didn't speak. She just stared at him like she didn't know what to say. Nathan stood there for a second, then walked past her and opened a cabinet. He pulled out a glass, filled it with water, and drank it slowly. She watched him the whole time. When he finally turned to face her, she flinched a little. "I want the truth," he said, his voice low and calm, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of calm that came before a storm. "I know," she whispered. "I'll tell you everything." He leaned against the counter and crossed his arms. "How long?" She looked down into her cup. "Almost a year." His throat tightened, but he didn't move. "You mean to tell me for almost a year you've been sneaking around with my brother?" Her head dropped lower. "It wasn't supposed to happen. It just did." He laughed, but it wasn't because anything was funny. It was sharp and bitter. "Things like that don't just happen, Emily. You don't trip and fall into someone else's bed." She looked up, her face full of guilt. "I know. I was lonely, Nathan. You were always working. You barely looked at me anymore. I tried to talk to you. I needed something. And Luke, he was just there. At first it was just talking, then "Stop," Nathan said, holding up his hand. "I don't want details." Silence stretched between them. It was painful. Everything that had once felt normal in this house now felt like a lie. The kitchen where they used to make breakfast together. The table where they used to laugh about stupid things. All of it felt fake now. He turned to leave the kitchen, but she stood up suddenly and reached out. "Wait, please don't go." He stopped walking, but he didn't turn around. "Why, Luke, of all people?" Her voice cracked. "I didn't mean for it to be him. It just started happening. He made me feel seen again. And then it went too far, and I didn't know how to stop it." He spun around, eyes burning. "You didn't know how to stop sleeping with my brother? You want sympathy for that?" She shook her head quickly. "No, I just want you to understand I never stopped loving you." He stared at her, shocked at what he just heard. "You love me? Emily, what part of love includes lying to my face for a year? What part of love includes destroying a family?" Her lip quivered. "I know I ruined everything. I don't expect forgiveness, I don't want you to hate me." He stood there for a long time, saying nothing. Then finally he walked past her, down the hallway, straight to the bedroom. He didn't even want to be in that room anymore. He grabbed a bag and stuffed it with a few clothes, his laptop, and whatever else he could grab in 10 minutes. When he came back out, she was still standing there. He walked to the door, hand on the knob. "Where are you going?" she asked softly. "Anywhere else," he said without looking back. Then he opened the door and left. Nathan drove until his eyes burned and his head ached from staring at the road. He didn't even know what direction he was going anymore. The streetlights stretched past him like blurry lines, and the sky outside was already dark, no stars visible through the haze. Every few minutes he had to remind himself to breathe. His chest felt tight, like someone was sitting on it. He rolled the window down, letting the cold air hit his face, hoping it would make him feel something other than the weight pressing inside his ribs. It didn't. The silence in the car was heavy. He didn't play the radio. He didn't want sound, not even music, because sound meant thinking. And if he thought too much, he'd see everything again. Emily's face, Luke's hand on her back, the way both of them looked at him like he wasn't supposed to be there. His brother, his wife, the two people he trusted most. He gripped the steering wheel tighter and felt a rush of anger, the kind that burns hot and quick but leaves you even emptier afterward. He stopped at a gas station somewhere outside the city. The lights above the pumps buzzed and the smell of fuel mixed with the damp air. He got out, stretched his legs, and walked inside without really knowing why. The clerk behind the counter nodded, but Nathan didn't nod back. He just grabbed a bottle of water and a pack of gum and stood at the counter staring at the screen that asked for his card. For a second, he forgot what he was doing. The clerk said, "You okay, man?" And Nathan blinked like he'd just woken up. He paid and left without answering. Back in the car, he sat there with the water in his hand but didn't open it. He stared out the windshield at nothing. The parking lot was half empty. A man filled up his tank at the far end, music playing faintly from his truck. A woman carried a child inside the store. Everything looked normal, like life was still moving forward, and Nathan felt something cold settle in his stomach. His world had stopped spinning, but everyone else's hadn't. That thought hit him harder than he expected. He started the engine again and drove toward one of his construction sites on the edge of town. The project had been on hold for weeks, waiting for permits. He remembered the place well, a wide-open lot with a few half-built walls and scaffolding scattered around. When he pulled up, the gates were locked, so he parked just outside and climbed over the fence. His shoes crunched against the gravel. The wind was sharp and dry, and his breath came out in white puffs. He walked until he reached the middle of the site, where a concrete foundation stretched under a web of steel beams. He sat down on a low wall, elbows resting on his knees. The night was quiet, only the faint hum of traffic in the distance. For the first time since walking in on them, he let himself think, not just flashes, full thoughts. He replayed their voices, Luke laughing, Emily whispering something he couldn't make out. That sound used to mean love and comfort, now it made his stomach turn. He tried to figure out when it started, when the first lie happened. There must have been signs, he thought. Nights she said she was visiting a friend, times Luke stopped by unannounced. He felt stupid, blind, like he'd been living in a story everyone else already knew the ending to. His phone buzzed again. Emily's name lit up on the screen. He stared at it until it stopped vibrating. Then it buzzed again. He turned it face down on the concrete beside him. The glow of the screen faded, leaving him in the dark. He leaned back against a stack of wooden boards and looked up at the sky. The clouds were thick, blocking everything above. He thought about calling someone, maybe his dad or his friend Mark from college. But what was he supposed to say? "Hey, I found my wife with my brother." The words sounded ridiculous even in his head. There was no way to say it without sounding like his life had become some bad TV drama. The truth was, he didn't want to talk to anyone. He didn't want pity. He didn't want advice. He didn't even want understanding. He just wanted to stop feeling like his insides were spinning. He stayed there until morning. The workers would be showing up in a few hours, but he didn't care. His back hurt from sitting on concrete all night, and his clothes smelled like dust and cold air. When the first streaks of light broke across the sky, he stood up and brushed off his pants. His eyes were dry and heavy, but he hadn't cried. Not once. The tears wouldn't come. Driving home felt like heading toward a wreck you couldn't avoid. He didn't plan on seeing her. He just wanted to grab a few things, maybe sleep somewhere else for a while. The streets were quiet, the kind of quiet that follows early morning before the world wakes up. When he pulled into the driveway, he noticed Sarah's small blue car parked on the side. The sight of it made his chest tighten again. She had seen him walk toward that bedroom door. She knew what he'd seen. He wondered if she'd tell anyone, but then realized he didn't care. Nothing mattered right now. He opened the front door. The air inside smelled faintly of coffee and something else. Sadness, maybe, if sadness had a smell. Sarah was in the living room folding blankets again, pretending to work. When she saw him, her hands froze. He didn't say anything, just nodded slightly, and she nodded back, her eyes full of quiet sympathy. He could tell she wanted to ask how he was, but he couldn't handle hearing that question, so he kept walking. In the bathroom, he turned on the sink and splashed water on his face. The man staring back at him in the mirror looked older somehow. His hair was a mess, eyes red, face pale. He didn't even recognize himself. He walked into the guest room, found a clean shirt in the drawer, and sat on the edge of the bed. The house was too still. Every creak and shift of the floor made his skin crawl. He could feel Emily somewhere in the house. Maybe in their bedroom, maybe crying, but he couldn't face her yet. He stared at the wedding ring on his finger for a long time. He twisted it slowly, sliding it halfway off, then back on again. That small band of metal suddenly felt like it weighed 100 pounds. He remembered the day he put it on her hand, how nervous he'd been, how sure he was that they'd beat the odds. He thought love was enough to hold everything together. He'd been wrong. Finally, he stood up, walked to the nightstand, and took off the ring. He set it down quietly, almost gently, like it deserved respect even if what it stood for didn't anymore. He looked at it for another second, then turned and walked out of the room. The moment his feet crossed the threshold, something inside him gave out. Not a cry, not a scream, just a deep shake that started in his chest and spread until his whole body trembled. He leaned against the wall and let his forehead rest against the cool surface. For the first time since everything happened, the tears came. Not loud, not violent, just steady and silent, like a leak that couldn't be stopped. He stayed that way for a long time until the shaking slowed and his breathing evened out. The house was still quiet, too quiet. He wiped his face with his sleeve and took a deep breath that didn't feel like relief, just exhaustion. His world had collapsed and there was no way to rebuild it right now. All he could do was stand there trying to remember how to exist in a life that suddenly didn't belong to him anymore. Nathan didn't sleep, not really. He just laid there in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, his mind going in circles that never ended. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw them again. Emily, Luke, the look in her eyes when she saw him, the sound of her voice when she tried to say his name. And the part that hurt the most wasn't the image of them in bed. It was the simple fact that she didn't stop it. Not before, not during, not even after. By mid-morning, the house had that strange stillness to it, the kind that only shows up after something ugly has been dragged into the light. There was no music playing like usual, no smell of breakfast, not even the clinking of plates in the sink. Just silence. He got up slowly and changed into jeans and a hoodie. His throat was dry, but he didn't feel like drinking anything. His head throbbed, and there was a pressure behind his eyes that hadn't gone away since the night before. He walked out into the hallway, footsteps soft but heavy. Part of him hoped she was gone, that maybe she'd packed up and left, that maybe he wouldn't have to see her face again. But she was in the kitchen. She sat at the table, not moving, hands wrapped around a coffee mug she probably wasn't drinking from. Her hair was tied up messily, her eyes swollen, and she looked like she hadn't slept either. For a second, he just stood there, staring at her from the edge of the hallway, watching her chest rise and fall slowly like she was bracing for something. Maybe she was. When she looked up and saw him, her whole body tensed. She opened her mouth to say something, but he raised a hand slightly and walked in. pulling out a chair and sitting down across from her. His face was blank, calm, but underneath that, everything inside him was still cracked and shaking. She said his name softly. "Nathan." He looked at her straight on, eyes cold and sharp. "How long?" She swallowed. "I told you. Almost a year." He shook his head slowly. "No. Tell me the truth. From the beginning. All of it. No soft versions. No. It just happened. I want to hear exactly how the person I trusted with my life ended up in my bed with my brother." She blinked fast, like she wasn't ready for how direct he came at her. But after a pause, she nodded. Her voice was quiet, but not shaky. "It started last summer. You were working late all the time. We barely talked. You'd come home exhausted, and I didn't want to make things worse by complaining. Luke started dropping by more often. Said he was checking in on me, helping out with the yard, things like that. Nathan stayed quiet, arms folded, jaw tight. Emily looked down. I didn't think anything of it at first. He was funny, relaxed. He paid attention. I felt like I could breathe when he was around. He asked about my day. He noticed when I changed something. And one day he kissed me. I told him it was wrong. I told him to leave. He did." She looked up at Nathan, eyes watery. "But I didn't tell you. I should have. I didn't. I didn't want to make you angry or blow up your family. I thought if I ignored it, it would go away. But then he came back. We talked. And eventually, I stopped saying no." Nathan leaned back slightly. Pain etched all over his face, but his voice still low and cold. "You let it happen." She nodded slowly. "Yes, I let it happen. And I hate myself for it." He stared at her for a long time. The silence stretched so far it almost buzzed in his ears. "Did you love him?" Her face changed at that. "No, I didn't love him. I was lost. And he gave me something I felt like I was missing." "You weren't missing anything," he snapped, his voice rising for the first time. "You had everything. You had this house, our life, my trust. You could have talked to me. Instead, you went behind my back with my brother. Do you even understand what that means?" Emily's hands shook around her coffee mug. "I do. I know what I destroyed. I think about it every second." Nathan stood up, walking a few steps away, then turning back toward her. "He's my blood. He was my best man at our wedding. You both sat there and smiled in my face, knowing what you were doing." She wiped her eyes and didn't respond. "You know what the worst part is?" Nathan said, stepping closer. "I still wanted to believe you were better than this. Even when I opened that door, even after I saw it. I stood there hoping there was a reason, something I was missing. But there wasn't. You just lied. Again and again." Emily stood slowly, her voice shaky now. "Nathan, please. I never stopped loving you." He laughed once, bitter and sharp. "You keep saying that. But if that's love, I want nothing to do with it. I made a mistake." "No," he cut her off. "You made a choice. Every time you texted him. Every time you let him in. Every time you didn't tell me the truth. Those weren't accidents. You knew exactly what you were doing." She broke then. Her knees gave a little and she leaned on the table, breathing hard, sobbing quietly but not hiding her face. "I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't want to lose you." Nathan's hands were shaking now too. He turned and walked toward the window, rubbing his eyes. He felt like he was being pulled in 100 directions. Part of him wanted to scream, another part wanted to walk out the door and never look back. And a small, sick part of him still wished this wasn't real. "You already lost me," he said, not turning around. She stayed where she was, sniffling quietly, hands gripping the table like it was the only thing holding her up. He finally looked back at her. "I'm moving out. I don't want to see Luke. I don't want to talk about this again. I need space." "Where will you go?" she asked, almost whispering. "I don't know yet," he said, "but not here. I can't sleep in that house with you. I can't eat at that table like everything's fine. It's not fine. It's never going to be fine." He walked out of the kitchen, leaving her standing there, and went upstairs to pack more of his things. His suitcase was already half full from before. He grabbed a few shirts, socks, a jacket, and shoved his toiletries into a bag without much care. The house felt smaller than it used to. The walls, the floors, everything held memories now that made his skin crawl. Downstairs, Sarah stood near the entryway, eyes wide, mouth slightly open like she wanted to say something, but couldn't. He gave her a quick nod as he passed. She looked heartbroken too, like all of this was just as much of a mess for her to witness. She was more than just a housekeeper. She'd been there through all their years. She saw them laugh, argue, fall in love, and now she had to see it all come undone. Nathan opened the front door and stepped outside. The air was cold and sharp. He didn't look back. The door shut quietly behind him. Nathan spent the first 2 nights in a hotel. It was one of those quiet, decent places just off the highway with clean sheets, cold lamps, and a TV that always seemed too loud no matter how low the volume was. He didn't bother unpacking. He just dropped his suitcase near the closet, took off his shoes, and sat on the edge of the bed staring at the floor. Every time his phone lit up, he ignored it. Most of the messages were from Emily. A few were from Luke. None of them were worth opening. The longer he stayed in that small room, the more it started to sink in. This wasn't a temporary fight. This wasn't something that would blow over. This was a crack straight down the middle of everything he thought he could count on. On the 3rd morning, he finally picked up when his dad called. Walter Keller didn't beat around the bush. I heard. Nathan didn't say anything. Walter continued, his voice tight. Your mother told me. Emily called her. Of course she did. Nathan closed his eyes and rubbed his forehead. And what the hell happened, son? Nathan took a breath, sat back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. I caught them. Emily and Luke. There was silence on the line. Long, heavy. Caught them. How? You don't want the details. Walter cursed under his breath. Jesus Christ, Nathan. Yeah. Another pause. Is it true? What she said? She admitted it. Been going on for almost a year. God damn it, Walter muttered, and Nathan could hear something crash in the background like he'd knocked a glass off the counter. I'm gonna kill him. Nathan didn't respond. There was nothing to say. The anger in his dad's voice was a mirror of his own. We'll come by later, Walter said. We'll figure this out. Nathan almost laughed. What's there to figure out? Walter went quiet again. I'm sorry, son. I can't believe this. Your own brother. Yeah, Nathan said. I still don't believe it either. The call ended soon after, and Nathan sat there for a while, holding the phone in his hand like it might somehow change the truth. It didn't. That afternoon, he drove to his parents' house, not because he wanted to talk, but because he didn't want to be in the hotel room anymore. When he pulled into the driveway, his mom was already waiting on the porch. She hugged him tight, her arms shaking around his back. I don't even know what to say, she whispered. Nathan didn't hug back right away. Eventually, he placed a hand gently on her shoulder. I don't need you to say anything. Inside, Walter was pacing the living room, face red and fists clenched. He looked like he hadn't slept either. When were you going to tell us? He asked the second Nathan walked in. I needed space, Nathan said. Walter pointed toward the kitchen. Your brother's been calling. I haven't picked up. He even showed up here yesterday like nothing happened. I told him to leave. Good, Nathan said. He doesn't get to pretend everything's normal. Walter shook his head. What the hell is wrong with him? What kind of man does that to his own brother? Nathan didn't answer because he didn't have an answer. That was the part that made it worse. If Luke was a stranger, or even just a co-worker, it would still hurt. But this was deeper. This was family. And now that word didn't mean much anymore. His mom sat beside him on the couch, holding his hand the way she used to when he was little. Did you see it coming? She asked gently. Nathan shook his head. Not at all, she sighed. I just don't understand how someone could live like that. Look you in the eye, smile at family dinners, and still do what they did. Nathan stared down at the carpet. He came to our house. He sat at our table. His dad ran a hand through his hair, voice still angry. What did Emily say? She admitted it, said she was lonely, said I was too busy with work. Walter scoffed. That's a lame excuse. Nathan stood up. He couldn't sit still anymore. He started pacing, trying to burn off some of the pressure building in his chest again. She made it sound like she didn't want it to happen, he said, voice bitter. Like it just got out of control. But that's not how it works. You don't trip and fall into an affair that lasts a year. His mom looked heartbroken. Do you think she still loves you? Nathan stopped walking. He hated that question. He didn't know. Maybe she did. Maybe she thought she did. But what kind of love looks like betrayal? I don't care, he said after a while. It doesn't matter anymore. The front door opened without warning. All three of them turned at the same time as Luke stepped inside, eyes wide like he hadn't expected to see them all there. Nathan, he said. Nathan's blood turned cold. His father stood up instantly. You've got some nerve coming here. Luke looked rough. His hair was a mess, eyes dark with circles under them, face pale like he hadn't slept either. I just want to talk, he said quickly, hands up like he was walking into a standoff. Please, just let me explain. Walter's voice boomed. Explain what? How you screwed over your own damn brother? Luke's eyes flicked to Nathan, full of guilt. I messed up. I know I did. But it wasn't like I planned it. It started as a mistake. And then, Nathan's fists clenched. Don't stand there and feed me the same lines she did. I'm sorry, Luke said, voice cracking. I swear to God I didn't mean to hurt you. Nathan laughed, cold and sharp. You didn't mean to hurt me? You slept with my wife. You looked me in the eye, man. You came over, had beers with me. How do you even say that out loud and expect it to matter? Luke took a step forward, but Walter stepped between them. You should leave. I just want a chance to. There's no chance, Nathan said flatly. You made your choice. Luke looked like he might cry. She came to me first. Nathan stepped forward fast. Don't you dare try to blame this on her. I'm not blaming. I'm just saying it wasn't one-sided. Of course it wasn't, Nathan snapped. You both did this together. That's the point. Walter pushed Luke toward the door. Get out, before I lose what little control I've got left. Luke looked at Nathan one last time. I never wanted to ruin things. You did anyway, Nathan said. And just like that, Luke walked out. The door closed behind him, leaving a sharp, quiet tension in the room that no one knew how to fix. Walter dropped onto the armchair, breathing hard. Unbelievable. Nathan didn't say anything else. He just picked up his jacket from the couch and headed toward the door. Where are you going? His mom asked. I don't know, he said, but I can't be here right now either. As he stepped outside, the cold hit him again. And this time, he welcomed it, because at least the cold felt honest. Not like everything else. Nathan spent the next few days floating through life like he wasn't really there. He changed hotels twice. Didn't unpack either time. He left his phone on silent and ignored nearly everything. He ate when he remembered, mostly fast food or whatever was nearby. The coffee tasted like cardboard. Everything did. He tried working, opening his laptop, answering emails, pretending to be the same guy who ran meetings and made decisions, but his head wasn't in it. He found himself staring at spreadsheets and contracts without really seeing them. Words blurred together. Numbers didn't make sense. His mind kept drifting back to the house, to her, to his brother, to the look in Sarah's eyes when she stopped him that day. There was something about it that hadn't left him. It was around 11 on a Thursday morning when Sarah called. Her name lit up the screen, and for a second, Nathan debated letting it ring, but something told him not to. He picked up. Hi, he said, voice flat. Mr. Keller, she started, then quickly corrected herself. Nathan, I'm sorry to call, but I really need to talk to you. Her tone was different. Not nervous like before, but serious. Focused. Is something wrong? He asked. There was a pause. Yes, she said, and I should have said something sooner. Can we meet? He rubbed his eyes, already feeling the headache behind them. What's this about, Sarah? Please, she said quietly. It's about what happened, but also, more than that. He sat up straighter. That got his attention. Okay. Where? They met at a coffee shop not far from the house. Sarah showed up wearing jeans and a hoodie, her hair tied back, no makeup. She looked tired, maybe not just tired, worn down. He sat across from her at a small table by the window. The place smelled like cinnamon and espresso, too cozy for the kind of conversation they were clearly about to have. She held a paper cup in her hands but didn't drink from it. Thank you for coming, she said, avoiding his eyes. Sarah, what's going on? He asked. If there's something you know, now's the time to be honest. She nodded slowly. I knew. About them. Emily and Luke. He felt a cold weight drop into his stomach, but he stayed still. How long? I didn't know from the beginning, she said quickly. It was maybe 3 or 4 months ago when I first noticed. The way they looked at each other. Little things. He'd show up when you weren't home. I saw them talking in the kitchen once, too close, too comfortable. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. Why didn't you say anything? She looked him in the eye now. Because someone told me not to. That made his heart stop for a second. What do you mean? She hesitated, like she wasn't sure how much to say. Then she pulled her phone from her bag, opened a folder of saved voicemails, and clicked play. A woman's voice came through. Sharp, calm, confident. I'd suggest you stay out of it, Sarah. Whatever you think you know, keep it to yourself. You don't want to be dragged into something that's not your business. Trust me. Nathan stared at the phone, confused. Who the hell is that? Sarah looked up. Charlotte. It felt like the air in the room shifted. Nathan blinked. Charlotte? My ex? Sarah nodded. She called me a few weeks ago. She knew about the affair. I don't know how, but she did. She said if I opened my mouth to you, she'd make sure I lost everything. My job, my references, my immigration paperwork, all of it. Nathan stared at her in disbelief. How would she even know you were working for us? She's been following your life, Nathan, watching from a distance. She even came to the house once. Said she was there for a delivery. I didn't realize it was her at first. He couldn't wrap his head around it. Charlotte? It had been years. They broke up on bad terms, sure, but she'd moved on. Or so he thought. She ran a company now. She was supposed to be building her brand, working with investors. This was personal. Why would she care about any of this? He asked. Sarah leaned in a little, lowering her voice. Because she wants to destroy you, and she's already started. Nathan's stomach turned. That's insane. Sarah nodded slowly. I know, but I think it's true. She knew about the affair before you did. She knew enough to threaten me with it, and she didn't want you to find out yet. She wanted it to hit you harder, publicly, maybe even when it could cost you more. Nathan rubbed his face with both hands. You're telling me Charlotte blackmailed you into silence so she could, what? Watch my life fall apart? I don't know her full plan, Sarah admitted, but I'm sure she's not finished. For a while, neither of them said anything. The coffee shop buzzed around them, people ordering pastries, phones ringing, milk being steamed, but their table was dead silent. Finally, Nathan spoke. Why are you telling me this now? Sarah's eyes welled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. Because I saw your face that day. When you opened the door, I couldn't keep lying. I should have told you the second I knew. I'm so sorry. He exhaled slowly, heart pounding, head spinning. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about manipulation, planning, someone pulling strings behind his back for who knows how long. He stood up. Do you still have the voicemail saved? She nodded. Send it to me. She nodded again and hit the share button. His phone buzzed a moment later. He looked down at it, jaw tight. Thank you, he said. Sarah stood too, looking nervous. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, he said honestly, but I'm done being quiet. He walked out of the coffee shop with a different kind of weight on his shoulders. Not sadness this time, something sharper. Anger, focus. He didn't know what game Charlotte was playing or how deep it went, but if she thought he was just going to sit back and let her keep tearing his life apart, she was about to find out who she was messing with. Nathan didn't waste any time. The second he left the coffee shop, he started making calls. He wasn't calm anymore. That part of him, the version that tried to stay level even when everything was crashing down, was gone, replaced. Now he just wanted answers. Not the emotional kind, the real ones. The kind that involved documents, names, emails, hard proof. The first person he called was Gavin. Gavin had been Nathan's right hand for years. Smart, quick, loyal. He didn't ask unnecessary questions, and he knew how to read between the lines. He picked up on the third ring. Hey boss, Gavin said, trying to sound upbeat. I was just about to call you. There's something weird going on with one of the subsidiary accounts. I need to talk to you. Now, not over the phone. Gavin stopped. Okay. Where? Office. 30 minutes. Nathan hung up before he could ask anything else. By the time he reached the building, he was walking with that kind of energy that made people get out of his way. His staff had seen that look before, back when deals were falling through or when investors were dragging their feet. But today, it wasn't about money. It was personal. He pushed open the glass doors of his company's main floor and walked straight past the receptionist, ignoring the curious glances. Gavin was already in his office waiting, jacket off, sleeves rolled up. What's going on? Gavin asked. Nathan closed the door behind him, then dropped into the chair across from him. I need you to tell me everything you know about Charlotte Monroe, and I mean everything. Gavin blinked. Like what exactly? Her company, what she's been doing, who she's been talking to, if there's been any communication between her and anyone in our circle, even third party. I want it all. Gavin's face went still. Did something happen? She's behind all of this. Gavin's eyebrows lifted. What do you mean all of this? Nathan leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. She knew about the affair. Before I did. She threatened Sarah to keep quiet about it. She's been watching, waiting, setting something up. Gavin looked stunned, but only for a second. Then something clicked. There's been chatter, he said slowly. At the last board meeting, there were rumors that one of our competitors was trying to pressure our suppliers into breaking contracts. I traced one of the sources back to a shell firm. Turns out it's partially owned by Monroe Ventures. Nathan felt his jaw clench. Why didn't you say anything before? I didn't have proof, just hints. But now that you're saying this, it lines up. She's trying to corner us piece by piece. She's not after a contract, Nathan said. She's after me. Gavin sat back in his chair, processing. She's going after your reputation, your marriage, your name, your business. All of it. Nathan nodded once. And I need to stop her. Gavin opened his laptop and pulled up some files. All right, then we dig. We start with who she's working with. She can't do this alone. For the next 2 hours, the office turned into something between a war room and a crime scene. Gavin pulled data from vendor records, email chains, investment reports. Nathan scanned names, companies, timelines. A few names came up more than once. Brokers who suddenly backed out of deals, board members who suddenly flipped their votes, marketing contacts who started ghosting his team. Look at this, Gavin said, pointing to the screen. 3 weeks ago, right around the time you were in San Diego, Charlotte's firm submitted a bid to buy Brightstone Development, one of our subcontractors. She offered them more than market value. Way more. Trying to cut us off at the knees, Nathan muttered. And here, Gavin clicked again. She's been meeting with Jasper Holt. You know who that is? Nathan's stomach sank. Yeah, I know. Jasper Holt was a venture capitalist who'd been circling Nathan's company for years, always sniffing around looking for a weak spot, pretending to be helpful. Nathan had never liked him. Too slick, too eager. She's getting in his ear, Gavin said, convincing him you're slipping, that the company's unstable. Nathan stood and started pacing. She's laying the groundwork. Destroy my personal life, make me look distracted, reckless. Leak just enough bad news to shake investor confidence. Then when the board gets nervous, she moves in. Gavin finished. Makes her offer. Promises to clean things up. Nathan stopped pacing. His hands were in fists at his sides. This isn't just revenge. This is a takeover. Gavin nodded. She's trying to take the whole thing, not just the company, but your name, your legacy, everything. Nathan looked out the window, the city skyline glowing in the distance. Everything he'd built, every deal, every sleepless night, every risk, all of it was on the line now. Not because he made a bad business move, but because someone wanted him to suffer, and she wasn't done yet. He turned back to Gavin. We need to leak something. Beat her at her own game. Gavin raised an eyebrow. Like what? A fake merger. A big one. Something juicy enough that she can't resist. Gavin nodded slowly. You think she'll bite? She wants to be the one who knows everything before everyone else, Nathan said. Feed her just enough to make her feel in control. Then when she makes a move, we catch her. Gavin leaned back. All right, but we have to be careful. If she senses it's bait, she won't. Nathan cut in. She thinks I'm too broken to fight back. Gavin smirked. Then let's prove her wrong. They worked late into the night, crafting fake documents, setting up phony meetings and planting breadcrumbs just believable enough to seem real. Nathan called a few trusted board members and hinted at upcoming changes. Nothing direct, just enough to start the rumor mill. By midnight, the plan was in motion. Charlotte had made the first move. Now it was his turn, and this time he wasn't going to let her win. Nathan didn't want to see him. Not ever. But there was something inside him that wouldn't let it go. A part of him that kept replaying everything over and over again. He needed to hear it from Luke's mouth. The whole truth, not just pieces passed around through other people. It wasn't about getting closure or some dramatic apology. He just needed to look him in the eye and ask the one thing that had been burning in his chest every single day since it happened. Why? So late one afternoon, Nathan drove out to the apartment complex on the east side of town where Luke was staying. Not the nice side. This place looked like it hadn't seen a fresh coat of paint in 10 years. Cracks in the sidewalk, peeling numbers on the doors, and someone yelling in the background about rent. Luke never had much stability even before all of this, but Nathan figured if he was hiding anywhere, it'd be somewhere like this. Quiet, cheap, forgotten. He walked up to the second floor and knocked on door 204. No answer at first. He knocked again, louder this time. The door finally opened just a crack, and there he was. Luke. He looked awful. Skinny, pale, unshaven, like he hadn't seen sunlight in weeks. His eyes were bloodshot, and his shirt was wrinkled like he'd been sleeping in it. He froze when he saw Nathan. For a second, neither of them said anything. Nathan didn't ask to come in. He just stood there and stared at him. Luke looked like he was about to close the door again, but then he sighed and opened it fully, stepping aside. Yeah, Luke muttered. Come in. The apartment was small, dark, and smelled like old pizza and stale beer. Takeout boxes were stacked on the counter, and a pile of laundry sat in the corner. Nathan didn't sit. He stood in the middle of the room and kept his arms crossed. Luke scratched the back of his neck, avoiding eye contact. I figured you'd come, eventually. Nathan narrowed his eyes. Did you? Luke dropped down onto the sagging couch and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I've been waiting for you to punch me in the face. Nathan didn't move. That's not why I'm here. Luke nodded slowly. All right, so what do you want? Nathan didn't blink. I want to know when you stopped giving a damn about me. Luke winced, like the words hit harder than expected. I didn't stop caring, man. You don't sleep with someone's wife when you care. Luke looked down at the stained carpet. I know. Nathan took a slow breath. How did it even start? Luke was quiet for a long time. Then he ran his hands through his messy hair and looked up, finally meeting Nathan's eyes. You want the real story? He asked. That's why I'm here. Luke nodded. It started last summer. I was at your place a lot, helping out, doing yard stuff, fixing the shed, whatever Emily needed while you were gone. It didn't start physical. At first it was just talking, laughing. I made her feel seen, I guess, and she made me feel important for once. Nathan shook his head slowly. You were important. I never treated you like you weren't. Luke let out a dry laugh. Yeah, but you were always the one with everything figured out. The smart one. The successful one. The one everybody looked up to. I was just the screw-up brother trying to keep up. Nathan's voice dropped. So you screwed my wife to even the score? Luke's face twisted in pain. No, I didn't plan it. I didn't mean for it to go that far. But she started calling me when you weren't around, inviting me over for stuff, and yeah, I should have said no. I should have walked away the first time she leaned in, but I didn't. Nathan clenched his jaw, forcing himself not to react too fast. How long? Luke looked at him dead in the eye. 10 months. The answer hit like a punch. Nathan had expected it, but hearing it out loud was different. 10 months. Not a mistake. Not a moment of weakness. A pattern. A secret life they built behind his back. You kept coming to the house, having dinner with us, laughing like nothing was wrong. I know, Luke said, voice shaking now. And every time I did, I hated myself more, but I kept doing it. And then I started feeling things. Nathan blinked. Don't say it. I fell for her, Nate. Nathan's hands curled into fists. You're lucky I haven't knocked your teeth out. I know, Luke whispered. I know I don't deserve anything from you. I ruined everything. I wrecked the one relationship I actually cared about. Then why didn't you stop? Because I was weak and selfish, and I kept telling myself it would end, that she'd choose you, that it didn't matter because you had your whole world anyway. But it mattered. It all mattered. Nathan stared at him, breathing hard through his nose. You had a front row seat to my life, my marriage. You knew how much she meant to me, and you still did it. Luke nodded slowly. I know, and I'll carry that forever. Nathan's eyes burned, but he didn't cry. He was past that now. You broke something in me. I broke something in me too. The room went quiet again. The air felt thick, heavy. Then Luke said something Nathan didn't expect. Charlotte paid me. Nathan's head snapped up. What? Luke swallowed. Charlotte, your ex. She offered me money. She said she wanted to shake things up for you. Said she knew Emily was vulnerable. Said all I had to do was get close. Nathan stared at him, stunned. You're telling me this whole thing started because of her? Luke nodded, shame covering his face. I didn't take it at first. I told her to screw off, but then money got tight. I lost work. My truck needed repairs. And when Emily started opening up to me, I took the offer. I thought I could do it without actually going through with anything. Just get close, feed Charlotte updates. But it went further, way further. And once it started, I couldn't stop. Nathan felt dizzy, like the ground under him had shifted again. You were spying on me? I was trying to survive, Luke said, voice breaking. But yeah, I sold you out. First for money, then for something worse. Nathan couldn't believe what he was hearing. You said you fell for her, was that a lie too? No, Luke said quickly. That was the only real part. I fell for her. I hated myself for it, but I did. Nathan stepped back like he'd been hit. You're unbelievable. I know. You don't ever have to forgive me. Nathan turned toward the door. Luke stood up. Nate, I'm done lying. I've lost everything. My job, my place in the family, her. She's not even talking to me anymore. I'm sitting here in this dump trying to figure out who the hell I am. Nathan didn't look back. He opened the door, stepped out into the hallway. I'm sorry, Luke said from behind him. Nathan paused for a second, just enough to breathe, then said, You should be. And then he walked away. Nathan didn't hear from Emily for a while after the visit to Luke. No calls, no texts, no messages sent through Sarah or anyone else. It was strange, actually. The quiet. After all the chaos, it almost felt fake. But part of him was thankful for the silence. He needed it. He needed space. He needed to breathe. He needed time to stop reacting and actually think. But the peace didn't last. It was a Tuesday afternoon when it happened. Nathan had just stepped out of a meeting with his legal team, still fired up about Charlotte and the fake merger they were baiting her into. He was headed to the elevator when Gavin met him in the hallway, looking weirdly serious. You got a visitor, he said. Nathan raised an eyebrow. Who? Gavin hesitated, then pointed behind him. She's in your office. Nathan's stomach dropped. He already knew. He walked in, and sure enough, there she was. Emily. She stood near the window, hands clasped in front of her face pale, her eyes tired. She wasn't dressed up or done up. No makeup, no heels, no jewelry. Just jeans and a sweatshirt, like she wasn't trying to impress anyone. Like she already knew nothing she wore could change how things were. He stood in the doorway, silent, just looking at her. She turned slowly, met his eyes, and gave him a small, shaky nod. I know I shouldn't be here, she said softly. He stepped inside, closed the door behind him. Then why are you? She bit her lip, then reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. Her hands trembled as she held it out to him. Nathan didn't move. What is that? Proof, she said, her voice almost a whisper. He took the folder slowly, opened it, and saw a set of papers, ultrasounds, blood test results, and a doctor's letter. His chest tightened as he flipped through the pages. I'm pregnant, she said. Nathan froze. The room spun for a second and all the air seemed to disappear. He looked up at her, unsure if he heard right. What? I found out 2 weeks ago, she said. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought maybe I shouldn't tell you at all, but I couldn't live with that. He stared at her, heart racing, head buzzing. You're saying it's mine? She nodded quickly. Yes, it's yours. You're sure? I'm sure. Nathan didn't speak. He looked back down at the papers like they might start making sense if he stared long enough. I know it sounds crazy, she said, stepping closer, but we were still sleeping together, even when it was still happening with Luke. It wasn't just him. He raised a hand. Don't. I have to say it, she said firmly. You deserve to know everything, even if it makes me look worse. I was spiraling. I was a mess. I was hurt and confused and angry, and I took it out on us. On you. Nathan's voice was flat. You betrayed me. I know, she said. Every single day I wake up and think about it, and now I'm carrying this baby, and I don't even know how to live with myself. He shook his head. So now what? You think showing up with a folder and a heartbeat's gonna change everything? No, she said, eyes filled with tears. I don't. I just didn't want to hide this from you, no matter how much you hate me. Nathan set the folder down on his desk, staring at it like it might catch fire. I don't even know what I feel anymore. I don't think I've processed anything since the day I opened that door. She sniffled. I get it. I don't expect anything from you. Not support, not forgiveness, not even involvement. I just needed you to know the truth. I owe you that much. He looked up at her again, trying to see the woman he married, trying to remember the days when everything was simple, when he couldn't wait to get home to her, when love felt easy. That version of her wasn't here anymore. But then again, maybe that version never really existed. Maybe he just saw what he wanted to see. Why did you really come today? He asked. She blinked, confused. I told you. No, he interrupted. That's not all of it. I've known you too long, Emily. You're scared. Not just because you're pregnant, because of something else. She hesitated, looked down at her hands. Then she sat in the chair across from him, wiping her face with her sleeve. I'm alone, Nathan, she said. I've never felt this alone in my life. My parents won't even talk to me. Friends? Gone. Sarah won't look me in the eye. And Luke, he's shut down. He's not calling, not texting. I think he finally realized how far this went. Nathan stayed quiet, watching her carefully. She kept going. I didn't come here to fix things. I know I can't. But I came here because I didn't want this kid to grow up with another secret. I've lived too many lies and I'm done. He nodded once, slowly. Are you keeping it? He asked. Her eyes flickered. Yes. I wasn't sure at first, but now I am. He leaned back in his chair, letting out a long breath. And what do you want from me? I don't know, she admitted. Part of me wants you to walk away and be free of all of it. And the other part wants you to show up to the first appointment and hold my hand like none of this ever happened. But I know that's not real. Nathan nodded again. His mind was spinning, but his voice stayed steady. I need time, he said. Take it, she whispered. He stood up, walked to the window, stared out at the city for a while. Everything looked the same. Buildings, cars, people rushing around. Like the world didn't care that his life had just taken another turn he didn't see coming. I'm not making promises, he said finally, still facing the glass. But I'm not running either. She let out a small sound. Not quite relief, not quite hope. Just something in between. Thank you, she said quietly. He turned back toward her. One more thing. She stood ready to leave. If you ever lie to me again, even about something small, we're done. Completely. She nodded. I understand. And with that, she walked out, leaving the door open behind her. Nathan sat down again, picked up the ultrasound photo from the folder, and stared at the tiny blur in the middle of the frame. Nothing made sense anymore, but the truth was finally on the table. And now, everything would change. Nathan didn't sleep that night. He lay on the couch in his new apartment, arms crossed over his chest, eyes wide open in the dark. No TV, no music, just silence and the constant buzzing in his head. The walls around him were still bare. He hadn't unpacked more than 2 boxes. There was a pile of clothes in the corner and an untouched dinner on the table from hours ago. The ultrasound picture sat on the coffee table, right next to the envelope Emily had left behind. He'd looked at it at least 10 times. A blur in black and white. Small, fragile. Not even a shape he could understand, just a cluster of something growing. A maybe. A question mark that weighed more than anything he'd ever carried. She said it was his. But now that the shock had settled, and the silence gave his thoughts room to breathe, doubt crept in. Not loud, but steady. She said she was sure. She said they were still sleeping together during the time. But that didn't mean anything. She had lied before, mine with words, with actions, with a straight face. Why would this be different? And now everything in Nathan's head was breaking into pieces again. He got up around 4 in the morning and started pacing. The floorboards creaked under his bare feet. What if it wasn't his? What if it was Luke's? What if the whole thing, the folder, the tears, the timing, was just another move to pull him back in? He grabbed his phone, opened a browser, and searched. Can you get a paternity test before a baby is born? The answer was yes. That same day, around noon, he called Emily. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, she said, her voice small. I want a test, Nathan said. Now. I'm not waiting until this baby's born. She didn't argue. Didn't get defensive. Okay, she said quietly. I'll make the appointment. He nodded even though she couldn't see it. I'll go with you. All right. He hung up without another word. 2 days later, they were sitting in a clean, quiet clinic with pale blue walls and soft music playing overhead. Emily sat beside him, hands in her lap, tapping her thumb nervously. She hadn't said much on the drive. Nathan hadn't either. A nurse called her name, and they both stood. The test didn't take long. A simple blood draw from her and a cheek swab from him. They were told it would take around a week to get results. Nathan thanked the nurse, then followed Emily outside. They stood near the parking lot, not speaking. The breeze was light. The air smelled like rain was coming. I don't blame you, Emily said after a while. If I were you, I'd have doubts too. Nathan looked at her. She was thinner than usual, dark circles under her eyes. She looked like someone who hadn't been okay for a long time. I'm not doing this to hurt you, he said. She shook her head. I know. You're doing what you need to do. I respect that. He nodded once, then turned toward his car. I'll talk to you when the results come in. He didn't wait for her to say anything back. The waiting was the worst part. Every day that passed felt longer than the one before it. Nathan went through the motions at work, but he wasn't there mentally. He kept checking his phone every few hours, hoping the clinic would call early. Gavin noticed the way he zoned out more. Didn't ask, just picked up the slack. Even Sarah reached out once, sending him a short message. Thinking of you. No matter what the results say, I've got your back. He appreciated it, but it didn't quiet the noise in his head. When the call finally came, it was a Wednesday morning. He was sitting in his car outside the office, just staring at the building. unable to make himself go inside. The clinic's number popped up on the screen, and he answered with a shaky breath. The voice on the other end was calm, professional. "Hi, Mr. Keller. We've received your results. I'm happy to report that you are not the biological father of the child." The words didn't hit all at once. He blinked. "What? You are not the biological father," the voice repeated. "Would you like us to send you a copy of the report by email?" Nathan didn't answer. He just ended the call and sat there, his phone still in his hand. His whole body went cold. He wasn't the father. Emily lied again. Or maybe not lied. Maybe she really didn't know. But it didn't matter. She was wrong. And now whatever tiny thread was left between them snapped. He didn't go into the office that day. He drove. Nowhere in particular. Just drove. At one point he pulled over near a lake and sat on the hood of his car, watching the water move like it was breathing. He didn't cry. Not even close. He was past heartbreak now. Past confusion. This was something else. Numb, sharp, final. Later that night he texted Emily. "I got the results." She replied fast. "What did they say?" He stared at the message, then typed, "It's not mine." The 3 dots popped up, then disappeared, then came back, then disappeared again. Finally, "I don't understand. Are you sure? This doesn't make sense. Nathan, I swear to you I wasn't with anyone else." He didn't reply. She kept going. "Please call me. We need to talk about this. I'm freaking out. This has to be a mistake." It wasn't. He'd seen the report. It was clear. And if she truly believed she wasn't with anyone else, then it meant one thing. There was another lie she hadn't told, or someone else she hadn't remembered. Or maybe she'd buried something so deep that even she didn't want to face it. He left the messages unread after that. He didn't have the energy to keep playing detective. What he needed now was space. Real space. And peace. For once. Nathan didn't want to hear her voice again. Not now. Not after that call. Not after the test. He'd given her a chance. One last chance to tell the truth. And she got it wrong again. Whether she lied or didn't know didn't really matter anymore. The damage was done. What little trust he had left was gone. But Emily wouldn't stop. She called. She texted. She even left voicemails, which she rarely did. He deleted most of them without listening. But one night, a few days after the results came in, he played one out of pure anger. Her voice came through the speaker, shaking, desperate. "Nathan, please. I swear I didn't sleep with anyone else. I'm not lying to you. I swear to God I'm not. I don't know how this happened, but I need you to talk to me. Something's not right. Please. I'm losing my mind." He threw the phone onto the couch. For a while, he convinced himself he didn't care what the truth was, that whatever she had to say didn't matter. But the more he sat with it, the more a question kept creeping back into his head. If the baby wasn't his, and it wasn't Luke's, then who the hell was the father? It wasn't just about the baby anymore. It was about the fact that she kept saying she didn't know, and something about that didn't sit right. Not with how careful she'd always been. Not with how controlling she used to be about timelines, dates, tracking things. She knew. She always knew everything, which meant she was hiding something bigger, something worse. So he called her. She picked up so fast he barely heard it ring. "Nathan?" she said, like she hadn't believed she'd ever hear his voice again. "Don't talk. Just listen," he said, calm but sharp. "You have one shot to tell me everything right now, because I don't believe you didn't know. And if you lie again, I swear to you, I'll never speak to you again. I don't care if you're pregnant. I don't care what you're going through. You will be a stranger to me. Is that clear?" There was silence, and then she let out a slow, shaky breath. "I didn't lie to you," she said softly, "but I didn't tell you everything either." Nathan's chest tightened. He knew it. He knew it. "Go on," he said. There was a pause. He could hear her pacing, maybe crying, but he didn't say anything. He waited. "It was one night," she finally said. "Before everything. Before Luke. Before any of this started. It was after that fight we had in February. The night you left for the hotel." Nathan closed his eyes. He remembered that night. They'd argued about the company, about how she felt invisible, about how he never made time for her. He left because he needed air. They didn't speak until the next afternoon. When he came back, she hugged him like nothing ever happened. "What happened that night?" he asked. "I went out," she said. "I had too much to drink. I ran into someone from work. We'd talked before. He was nice. I don't even remember most of it. Just flashes. We kissed. We ended up at his place. It was one time. and I felt sick about it afterward. I told myself it didn't count, that it didn't matter because I loved you, because it was a mistake I'd never make again. Nathan's heart pounded in his ears. What was his name? She hesitated. Emily. Gavin. Silence. The whole room felt like it tilted. Nathan stood frozen, phone pressed to his ear. Gavin? His assistant? The man who helped him plant fake documents to trap Charlotte? The one who stayed late at the office with him, made coffee runs, cracked jokes when things got too tense? Gavin. The shock turned fast into rage. I didn't mean for it to happen, Emily said quickly. We never talked about it after. We avoided each other at work. We pretended it didn't happen. I thought I could bury it. I didn't even think about it when I found out I was pregnant. I assumed. Don't, Nathan snapped. Don't say you assumed anything. You knew there was a chance. I didn't want to believe it, she cried, because that would have made everything even worse. Nathan's voice dropped. You slept with my assistant. I'm sorry. While we were married. Yes. Then lied about it repeatedly. I didn't lie. You did lie, he said louder. You told me you didn't know. You swore up and down it was mine. Then you said maybe it was Luke's. And now you're telling me it was someone else this whole time? I was scared, she said, crying harder now. I was already losing everything. I couldn't handle losing you too. You lost me the day I opened that bedroom door, he said. This is just the part where I find out there's nothing left to lose. She didn't respond. Nathan stood in the middle of his living room, fists clenched, heart racing. I want to know if Gavin knows, he said. No, she said. I never told him. He never brought it up either. We acted like it never happened. He shook his head. He's been working with me, helping me, watching my back while you two laughed behind it. It wasn't like that. It was, Nathan said. You both made choices. And now I'm the one sitting in the middle of this disaster, trying to figure out who the hell I can trust. She whispered. I didn't want it to end like this. It ended a long time ago, he said. This is just the part where I finally see the whole picture. He hung up. Then he stood there in silence, staring at nothing. 10 minutes later, he grabbed his keys, got in his car, and drove straight to the office. He didn't call ahead, didn't text, just walked into the building like a storm coming in slow. When he reached Gavin's desk, he didn't say a word. Gavin looked up, surprised. Hey, I was just working on that. You slept with my wife, Nathan said loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. The entire room went still. Gavin's face dropped. What? Don't lie, Nathan said. I know. She told me. One night. February. Gavin stood up slowly. Nathan, I wasn't trying to. I don't care what you were trying to do, Nathan said. You knew who she was. You knew we were married. You sat across from me every damn day and acted like you had my back. Gavin looked like he'd been slapped. It was a mistake, I swear. We were both drunk. It didn't mean anything. Then why didn't you tell me? I didn't know how, Gavin said. I thought it would blow over. Nathan's voice dropped. You're done here. I want you out. Today. Gavin's mouth opened like he wanted to argue, but the look in Nathan's eyes shut it down fast. He grabbed his things without another word. Nathan turned and walked into his office, closed the door, and locked it. For a long time, he stood there, staring out the window, trying to figure out how his life had become this unrecognizable mess. Not just betrayal, not just heartbreak, but layers and layers of people pretending, lying, hiding. And now, he was done pretending too. Nathan didn't know what it felt like to hit rock bottom until that week. And the worst part? He still wasn't sure if he was there yet. Every time he thought he'd seen the last of the lies, another one came crawling out. But now, after everything, Emily, Luke, Gavin, there was only one name left hanging in his head like a nail waiting to be driven all the way in. Charlotte. She'd always been sharp, calculated, charming when she wanted to be, cold when she didn't. When they were together, she used to watch people like she was collecting pieces of them to use later. Nathan had brushed it off back then, thought maybe he was overthinking it. But now, he was done brushing things off. She wasn't just some bitter ex. She was the one who lit the first match. And now he was ready to find out what she'd really been trying to burn down. Gavin was gone, fired, out of the building before lunch, and good riddance. But even as Nathan tried to clean up that mess, Charlotte's name kept circling back. Her voice on Sarah's voicemail. Her name on the business reports Gavin showed him. Her fingerprints on the fake contracts and silent offers she tried to push through. She wasn't just playing games. She was running a full-blown strategy. The same day Gavin packed up his desk, Nathan called a private investigator. Not someone flashy, just a guy he knew from a friend, someone who specialized in corporate sabotage and internal leaks. He gave him one task: follow Charlotte Monroe, dig into her communications, her finances, her meetings, everything. While the investigator did his thing, Nathan focused on fixing what he could. He met with his legal team, started pulling back control of certain departments, and made sure Charlotte's name was flagged on every possible business channel. If she so much as breathed near another one of his companies, he wanted to know. But Charlotte wasn't hiding. That weekend, she made her move. An article dropped on a major business news site. A long, detailed, suspiciously well-sourced piece about Nathan's recent personal and professional instability. It mentioned his temporary leave from the company, his strained marriage, the public firing of Gavin, and even the rumored betrayal by his brother. The article didn't say anything illegal. It didn't lie. But it painted a picture, the kind that made investors nervous, the kind that made board members hold emergency meetings, the kind that made people start asking if Nathan Keller was still fit to lead. And at the bottom of the article, buried in the author's bio, was a little note. Sources include business insiders, legal experts, and corporate competitor Charlotte Monroe. Nathan's blood boiled when he read it. This wasn't random. It wasn't gossip. It was targeted. She was waiting for the perfect moment, and when he was at his lowest, when people started doubting him. And then she pushed. Not with lawsuits or takeover bids, not yet. First, she wanted to break him, make him weak, make him question himself. But what she didn't know was that this was the part where he stopped bleeding and started fighting back. Monday morning, Nathan walked into his office like a storm cloud. Gavin's desk was empty. The building was quiet. Everyone could feel something had shifted. He called Gavin's old assistant into the office. "Get me everything Charlotte has touched in the last 2 months. I don't care if it's a meeting invite or a coffee order. I want a paper trail." "Yes, sir." An hour later, the investigator called. "She's been having private meetings with Jasper Holt." Nathan cursed under his breath. Figures. Jasper Holt? Slick, well-connected, and greedy. He'd always wanted a way into Nathan's company, never got it. Until now. "She's feeding him information," the investigator continued. "Stuff about your leadership. She's hinting that the board might be better off under new direction. She's setting him up to make a formal bid." Nathan closed his eyes. She wants him to be the face of the takeover. Exactly. That's when the plan clicked. She wasn't just trying to destroy him. She wanted his company. But she didn't want her name on the front page when the dust settled. She was letting Jasper do the dirty work, while she stood off to the side, acting like she was just a concerned investor. Smart. Calculated. Typical Charlotte. Nathan leaned forward on his desk, his voice steady. "Keep watching her. Don't spook her. I want every move recorded. I'm about to give her what she wants." He called Gavin's assistant again. "Draft a fake internal memo. Use the company letterhead. I want it to look like I'm preparing to step down. Say I'm considering a merger with an outside investor for a smoother transition. No names, just enough to make it look real." The assistant blinked. "Is that true?" "No, but Charlotte's going to think it is." Within 24 hours, the memo had accidentally leaked. A junior employee accidentally forwarded it to a few board members. The rumor spread like wildfire. Just like he expected, Charlotte jumped. The next morning, another article appeared, this one hinting that a new era might be coming to Nathan Keller's company. Sources close to the matter suggest that leadership changes could be announced within the next quarter. Charlotte's quote, "Sometimes fresh vision is what a company needs to rise again. I've always believed in stability, transparency, and strong partnerships." Nathan almost laughed when he read it. She was acting like she'd been trying to help all along. But what she didn't know was that every email she sent about it, every call she made to Jasper, every conversation she had with sources was being watched, documented, and saved. And by the end of the week, Nathan was ready. He stood at the head of the boardroom table, every seat filled, his legal team behind him, a file in his hand. He tossed the file onto the table, right in front of the board members. "Everything you're about to read shows that Charlotte Monroe has spent the last 4 months trying to dismantle this company from the inside out. She's leaked internal documents. She bribed employees. She even blackmailed one of my household staff to stay quiet while my personal life was being set up to collapse." The board members opened the file. Emails, call logs, Voicemails, meeting records. Jasper's name was all over them too. Nathan looked each of them in the eye. You think I've been distracted? That I'm not fit to lead? Then take this company from me, but if you do, you're handing it straight into the hands of the person who's been tearing it apart for months. You're not saving the ship. You're giving it to the iceberg. Dead silence. Then one of the board members, the one who'd been the most hesitant lately, cleared her throat. What do you want us to do? Nathan straightened his jacket. Call a press conference. Today. By sunset, the headlines had flipped. Charlotte Monroe under fire for attempted corporate sabotage. CEO Nathan Keller exposes rivals behind-the-scenes plot. Whistleblower documents reveal backdoor takeover plan. Charlotte tried to deny it, called it slander, claimed she was the victim. But Nathan had the proof. He dropped it all. Every file, every message. He didn't just protect his company. He burned her plan to the ground. And just like that, the woman who thought she could ruin his life quietly was suddenly front and center, exposed and falling fast. Nathan didn't celebrate. He didn't smile. He just walked back to his office, sat down at his desk, and finally, breathed. Charlotte thought she had him. She thought he was tired, broken, barely holding on. She thought her little games had pushed him far enough off balance that he'd stop paying attention to everything else. And for a while, yeah, maybe she was right. Nathan had taken hits from every direction. His brother, his wife, his so-called assistant. It felt like the entire world had flipped on him. Like no matter where he turned, someone had already stuck a knife in his back. But what Charlotte didn't know, or maybe forgot, was that Nathan had been building things his whole life. From nothing. From the ground up. And when someone builds something brick by brick, mistake by mistake, they learn how to hold on through the worst of it, even when it all starts to crack. She came after his personal life first. Then she aimed at his business. But what she didn't realize was, while she was busy planting stories and whispering in the ears of weak men like Jasper Holt, Nathan was already 10 steps ahead, watching, planning. The moment he confirmed Charlotte had been feeding intel to Jasper, he knew what he had to do. Set a trap, but not just a simple one, not something sloppy or rushed. This had to be big, bold, something that looked too real to question. And the best part? Charlotte would walk straight into it because she couldn't help herself. She always wanted to be the smartest person in the room. Nathan made sure she thought she was. It started with an email. Not from Nathan directly, that would have been too obvious. It came from one of the finance guys in a satellite office. Someone low enough on the chain to seem harmless, but high enough to sound legit. The email was part of a faked internal thread, carefully built, carefully timed. It leaked news of a potential merger between Keller Developments and a major European firm. Completely fake, but very convincing. The thread was sent to 3 specific people. One of them had ties to Charlotte. And as expected, within 24 hours, that fake memo reached her inbox. From there, she did exactly what Nathan hoped she would. She bit. Nathan watched it all unfold through Gavin's old server logs, stuff most people forgot to wipe clean when switching devices. Charlotte forwarded the email to Jasper. Then she made a call to another competitor, likely trying to get ahead of the so-called merger. Then came the meetings, quiet lunches, late-night calls, more emails. She started poking around in Keller Development's public-facing documents, trying to find holes, weaknesses. She was getting ready to make a move, possibly push her own company into the fake deal, or rush Jasper into offering a buyout before anyone else could swoop in. Nathan let her work. He didn't stop it. He didn't react. He didn't even flinch. That was the key. Keep her thinking she still had control. Meanwhile, his legal team and the PI were collecting everything. Every click, every call, every shadow she stepped into. He even had someone posing as an independent consultant meet with her to confirm her interest in the new merger deal. She took the bait, asked questions, tried to hint at her role as an insider without saying too much. But it was enough. Everything was recorded, logged, stored. A week later, Nathan sat with his legal team and laid it all out. They didn't even blink. "You've got her," one of the attorneys said. "This isn't just corporate sabotage. This is insider trading, breach of confidentiality, and attempted manipulation of a competitor's board." Nathan didn't smile. He didn't feel proud. What he felt was done, tired, like he was finally ready to shut the door on all of this. But there was still one thing left. He wanted Charlotte to know she'd walked into it. He wanted her to see the moment the floor dropped from under her. Not out of revenge. This wasn't about getting even. This was about making sure she never tried it again. Not with him, not with anyone. So he called a meeting, sent her an invitation personally, said it was a private conversation about future opportunities. She said yes immediately. She showed up at his office dressed sharp, all confidence and smiles, like nothing had happened, like she wasn't behind the fire he'd been putting out for weeks. "Nathan," she said as she stepped in, "you look good. I was wondering when we'd finally get to talk like adults." He didn't shake her hand, just motioned for her to sit. "We are going to talk," he said calmly, "but not the way you think." She tilted her head, curious. "Oh, I know what you've been doing," he said. "I know about the fake tips, the leaked emails, the meetings with Jasper, the threats to my staff, the offers behind my back." Her smile didn't fade right away. It cracked slowly, like she wasn't sure whether he was bluffing or just angry. "Nathan," she said carefully, "you've been through a lot lately. It's understandable that you'd feel—" He slid a folder across the desk. "Everything's in here. Documents, recordings, screenshots. Enough to get you banned from the boardroom for life. Maybe even enough to get you charged." Charlotte's face finally changed. No more charm, no more fake softness. Her jaw tightened. "I don't know what you think you have, but it's real," he said. "And it's already in the hands of the board. Legal's reviewing it now. I've also sent a copy to Jasper, just in case he had any stupid ideas about stepping in." She stared at him for a second too long. Her eyes narrowed. "You're bluffing," she said, but she didn't sound sure. Nathan leaned back in his chair, completely calm now. "You've always underestimated me. That's your mistake. You thought I'd break, that I'd be too distracted or too tired to see what was really going on. But I saw you, from the start, and while you were busy trying to rip everything apart, I was building something stronger." Charlotte stood up. "You're going to regret this." He didn't even look up. "No, you will." She stormed out, but not before glancing back once. And in her eyes, he saw something he'd never seen there before: fear. The next day, the board released a statement cutting all ties with Charlotte Monroe and her affiliates. Jasper tried to distance himself, but the emails were already circulating. His credibility took a hit. Her name was now tied to corporate scandal. Her company's stock dropped 12% in 2 days. Nathan didn't celebrate. He just went back to work. He'd won, but more than that, he'd survived. And now, for the first time in weeks, he had control again. Nathan showed up to work that Monday wearing a suit he hadn't touched in weeks. Dark gray, perfectly pressed. The kind of sharp that said nothing's broken here anymore. The hallway was quiet when he walked in, but everyone saw him. Heads turned. Conversations paused. A few people straightened up in their seats like they didn't know if they should greet him or stay out of his way. That silence wasn't awkward. It was respect. He nodded once. Didn't stop. Didn't slow down. His steps were steady. Clean. Focused. When he stepped into his office, the assistant was already there, stacking papers and checking a list. She looked up, unsure what to say. Nathan gave her a quick smile. "Let's get started." That day wasn't about proving anything to anyone else. It wasn't about revenge or headlines or board votes. It was about showing himself that he still knew who he was, that no matter how hard life had hit him, he was still standing. First, he tackled everything that had piled up while he was dealing with the chaos. Legal filings, budget meetings, partner check-ins. He handled each one personally, not because he didn't trust his team, but because he needed to remind himself what he'd built, what was real, what was still his. Then he called a meeting with the executive team. He stood at the head of the table, the same table where half of them had probably whispered doubts about him weeks ago. "I know the last few months have been rough," Nathan said, looking each of them in the eye. "I know some of you were waiting to see if I'd fold, and maybe for a minute I did. But that minute's over." No one interrupted. "I've seen who's with me and who's not. I've seen what silence looks like and what loyalty looks like. I don't need fake handshakes or quiet support. I need people who want to move forward. If that's not you, this is your chance to walk away." No one moved. He nodded once. "Good. Let's get to work." After the meeting, 2 board members, the same ones who had been getting a little too cozy with Charlotte during her whisper campaign, stopped by his office. They looked awkward, like kids caught sneaking out of class. "Just wanted to say we're glad you're back," one of them said. Nathan didn't smile. He looked up from his laptop and said, "You had a choice. You made it." Then he went back to typing. That was enough. They left without saying another word. By the end of the week, things felt different. Not just in the office, and in Nathan himself. He wasn't running from anything anymore. He wasn't waking up with his heart pounding or reaching for his phone hoping some new disaster hadn't landed overnight. He had his hands back on the wheel. And he wasn't just steering anymore, he was picking the road. There were still messes to clean up. There was still fallout from Charlotte's mess, lawsuits being sorted, investor nerves to calm, departments to reorganize. But Nathan wasn't afraid of the mess. He never had been. He took calls directly from clients that week, the high-stakes ones, not just to reassure them, but to let them hear the calm in his voice, to let them feel that the man in charge wasn't rattled. And it worked. One by one, the panic started to die down. Stock steadied. Partners leaned back in. Deals started moving again. Then came the part he wasn't ready for, the unexpected thank yous. Sarah stopped by his office late one afternoon. She didn't knock, just appeared in the doorway with her bag in her hands. "You look better," she said. Nathan looked up, half a smile on his face. "I feel better." She stepped inside. "I'm leaving." His face changed. "What?" She nodded. "Not because of anything bad, I've been thinking. For a while now. I want to start something of my own. A small business. Cleaning, organizing, house support, the kind of thing where I'm in control." Nathan stood up, walked around the desk. "You'd be amazing at that." She smiled, eyes a little watery. "I've spent the last few years cleaning up other people's messes. I think it's time I build something of my own." He reached into his drawer, pulled out a checkbook, and started writing. She blinked. "Nathan, no, I didn't come here for money." He ripped the check out and handed it to her. "You earned this 10 times over. It's not a favor, it's a thank you." She looked down at the number, then back at him. "You're gonna make me cry." "Good," he said. "Then we're even." She hugged him before she left. A real one. No awkwardness. No guilt. Just warmth. After she walked out, Nathan sat back down and stared out the window for a while. He thought about everything that had happened. All the people he lost. The ones who showed their true colors. The ones who stepped up. And he realized something. The pain had shaped him, changed him, but it hadn't broken him. He still had a long road ahead, especially with the baby, with Emily, with whatever came next. But the man looking back at him in the glass reflection, that was someone who'd survived the storm and was finally steering again. Nathan Keller wasn't the same man who walked into that bedroom weeks ago. He was sharper now, stronger, quieter maybe, but more dangerous than ever to anyone who thought they could play him. And this time he wasn't letting anything slide. Nathan didn't expect to hear from Luke ever again. After everything that happened, after everything that came out, the affair, the betrayal, the lie about Gavin, there was nothing left to say. At least that's what he told himself. He thought he'd buried it, thought the door was closed for good. But just when things had started to feel steady again, a text came through. Short, simple, unexpected. "Can we talk?" Nathan stared at it for a long time. Just those 4 words. No apology, no explanation, no drama. But something about it sat different than before. Something in the tone. It didn't feel like someone reaching out for a second chance. It felt like someone who finally had nothing left to lose. He didn't answer right away. In fact, he almost deleted the message. But that voice in the back of his mind, the part of him that hated loose ends, wouldn't let it go. So 2 days later, he called. Luke answered on the first ring, like he'd been waiting. They agreed to meet at a small diner halfway between them, the kind with chipped coffee cups and cracked leather booths. No one would bother them there. It was quiet, neutral ground. When Nathan walked in, Luke was already there. He looked different, thinner, tired. His face was more lined than it should have been, hair shorter, clothes clean but wrinkled, like someone trying to pull himself together but not quite there yet. Nathan slid into the booth across from him. No handshake, no fake smile, just quiet. Luke looked up. "Thanks for coming." Nathan nodded once. "You said you had something to say." Luke let out a breath. "Yeah, I do." The waitress came by. Nathan just asked for coffee. Luke didn't order anything. He waited until she walked away before speaking again. "I've been in therapy," he said. Nathan didn't respond. He just waited. 2 months now, group and individual. At first, it was court-mandated because of a DUI I got right after everything blew up, but I kept going. Nathan raised an eyebrow. "You drinking again?" "Not anymore," Luke said. "I stopped a month after the arrest. I've been clean since." Nathan sipped his coffee, still not saying much. He wanted to hear the whole thing. No interruptions, no half-stories. Luke nodded slowly. I deserved everything that happened to me. You don't have to tell me that. I lost my place, my job, most of the family. I know I did that. I know what I did to you. And I'm not sitting here to say sorry for the 100th time. I'm here because I need to tell you something else. Nathan finally looked him in the eye. Go ahead. Luke reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small envelope. He set it on the table, sliding it toward Nathan with 2 fingers. That's everything I have on Charlotte. Things she told me to say, things she paid me to do, emails, screenshots, even some recordings I never gave anyone. I held on to them because I thought I might need them one day. Or maybe because deep down I knew I owed you the truth even if it came too late. Nathan hesitated before taking the envelope. It was light, thin, but the weight of what might be inside settled heavy between them. You could have given this to me months ago, Nathan said. I know, Luke said. I wasn't ready then. I wasn't even a person then. I was just trying to survive, hiding, blaming everyone else. But I'm trying to be different now. Nathan leaned back. Why now? Luke paused for a second, then said something Nathan didn't expect. Because I don't want to be this guy anymore. The guy who ruined everything. The guy people cross the street to avoid. I don't want to fix things just to feel better. I want to actually be better. And that starts with facing the mess I made. All of it. Nathan looked at him for a long time. Not with anger. Not with sympathy either. Just trying to figure out if this version of Luke was real. What do you want from me? Nathan asked. Forgiveness? A second chance? No, Luke said quickly. I don't expect that. I probably don't even deserve it. I'm not asking for anything. I just didn't want you to keep thinking I did all of this alone. Charlotte manipulated me, fed me lies, promised things, told me you'd already moved on, said Emily was unhappy because of you, not me. I was weak enough to believe her, but it was still my choice, my mistake. Nathan glanced down at the envelope again. What's in here? Is it enough to take her down for good? Luke nodded. Yeah, it's bad. She used me. She used Gavin. She even tried to plant someone else after Gavin left. There are receipts, phone records, even a fake invoice she wanted me to sign under your name. I didn't do it, but I kept it. Nathan slipped the envelope into his jacket pocket. You did the right thing keeping it. I should have done the right thing from the start. They sat in silence for a while, just the low hum of the diner around them. Someone laughed at a table in the corner. A bell dinged in the kitchen. Luke leaned forward. I know we're not going to be brothers again, not like before, I'm not asking for that. But I just want you to know, I'm trying, for real this time. I'm working. Construction gig, small crew, pays okay, keeps me busy, keeps me clean. Nathan looked at him, and for the first time since all of this started, he didn't see the guy from that bedroom door. He saw someone trying to claw his way back from nothing. Someone who finally understood what he broke. I hope you stick with it, Nathan said. I will. They stood to leave. Still no hug, still no dramatic handshake. Just 2 men who'd been torn apart sitting across from each other, quietly accepting what was. As Nathan turned to walk out, Luke called after him. Nate. He looked back. Thanks for showing up. Nathan gave him a small nod. Next time, don't make me regret it. And then he walked out into the cold, the envelope tucked safely inside his coat. And for once, the weight he was carrying didn't feel heavier. It felt like something that might actually be worth holding on to. Nathan didn't go home after meeting with Luke. He didn't go back to the office either. He drove. Just drove. Nowhere specific. No destination. He rolled the windows down and let the cool air hit his face, hoping it would clear his head. It didn't. There was too much noise in there now. Luke's envelope sat on the passenger seat, unopened. He didn't need to look inside yet. He believed him. That in itself was strange. A few weeks ago, the idea of trusting his brother again felt impossible. But something had shifted in that diner. It wasn't forgiveness, not exactly. It wasn't a reunion or some emotional breakthrough. It was more like understanding. Nathan had been betrayed by people he never thought would hurt him, and now one of them was trying to fix it, in his own way. That mattered. He eventually pulled into a park, one of those big open ones with faded benches and slow walkers. The kind of place where nobody cared who you were or what kind of weight you were dragging around. He got out and sat on a bench under a tree, stretched his legs, and let his head fall back against the seat. He was sitting there with his eyes closed when he heard footsteps. He didn't look up at first. He figured it was just someone passing by. Nathan? His eyes opened. It was Sarah. She looked surprised to see him too. She wore jeans and a hoodie, hair pulled back, a tote bag slung over one shoulder. She was holding a paper cup of coffee and looked like she'd just come from running errands or maybe walking home from the grocery store. Something normal. He sat up. Hey. She blinked. Wow, this is unexpected. He motioned toward the empty spot beside him. You busy? She hesitated, then smiled softly and sat down. Not really. They didn't talk right away, just stared out at the open field in front of them. A kid threw a frisbee. A dog barked. It felt like a completely different world from the one they both came out of. Sarah broke the silence. You okay? He exhaled. I've had better years. She gave a small laugh, sad but honest. Yeah, I know the feeling. Nathan looked over at her. I heard you were starting your own thing. Cleaning business, right? She nodded. Yeah, it's early, but I'm excited, scared too. But I think I'm ready. He smiled a little. You'll be great at it. She took a sip of her coffee and looked down at her hands. Then, without warning, she said something that caught him completely off guard. There's something I never told you. Nathan turned his head, eyebrows raised. About what? Emily, she said quietly. And me. From before. He leaned in a little, confused. What do you mean? Sarah took a deep breath, like she'd been holding this one in for years. Before I started working for you, she said, I knew Emily. Nathan blinked. You what? She nodded slowly. We were friends. Not close, but enough. We met through a community fundraiser thing. We had mutual friends. This was years ago, way before she met you. I didn't even put it together at first when I applied for the job. But the second I saw her face during the interview, I remembered. Nathan sat there stunned. Why didn't you say anything? Because I thought maybe it didn't matter, that it was just one of those weird coincidences. But then I saw how she looked at me, like she remembered too, and not in a good way. Nathan stared at her. What happened? Sarah looked down at her coffee, holding it like it might slip from her fingers. Her voice dropped. She dated someone I was in love with, and she knew. We weren't together, me and him, but we were close. I thought we had a chance. I told Emily how I felt, and she pretended to support me. She acted like she was helping, like she cared. Nathan already knew where this was going. He could see it in Sarah's face. But she went behind my back, Sarah said. They started seeing each other in secret, and when I found out, I confronted her. She didn't apologize. She just said I should have made a move faster, like it was my fault. Nathan felt a cold rush crawl across his chest. Sarah kept going. I stopped talking to both of them. Cut them off. It was stupid, I know. Just young drama. But it hurt. She knew what she was doing, and she did it anyway. Nathan ran a hand through his hair. And then she married me. Sarah nodded. Yeah. And when I started working for you, I thought maybe time had changed her. Maybe I was the one holding on to old stuff. But the longer I stayed in that house and the more I saw it. Saw what? He asked. That she hadn't changed, Sarah said. She was still that girl who knew exactly how to make people feel seen, just enough to keep them close, but not enough to matter. She always had a backup plan, always had someone else waiting in the wings. I didn't want to believe it, but I saw it again with Luke, and I knew it was only a matter of time. Nathan leaned back, jaw clenched. So when you told me to be quiet that day, I already knew, she said. I'd seen his truck in the driveway when you weren't home. I overheard conversations. I saw the way she smiled when his name came up. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Sarah looked at him with watery eyes. Because I didn't think you'd believe me. And part of me, the stupid, scared part, was afraid she'd make me out to be jealous or bitter. And maybe a part of me was. Maybe I wanted to see her fall. Nathan stared out at the grass again, heart heavy, mind racing. I'm sorry, Sarah said, voice soft. I should have said something sooner. But I thought I was protecting myself. I didn't think I had the right to bring it up after all that time. Nathan shook his head. You were protecting me more than anyone else did. They sat in silence again. The kind that wasn't awkward. The kind that let the truth settle in the air. After a while, Sarah stood. I should go. Nathan stood with her. Thank you for telling me. She gave him a sad smile. You deserved better, Nathan. From all of us. Then she walked off, slow and quiet. Her shadow stretching out in front of her as the sun started to dip. Nathan stayed a few minutes longer, eyes on the horizon, thoughts spinning with things he wished he could unhear and things he was finally glad to know. One more secret, one more truth, and one step closer to finally being free. Nathan had already accepted that he wasn't the father. The test said it. Emily had cried about it, and he had done what he needed to do, stepped back, let it go. Or at least tried to. There were still moments, though, quiet ones, when his mind went there, when he caught himself wondering who the father really was. He hated that he cared, hated that it still had weight, but he couldn't help it. Something about the not knowing clung to him. He had a million other things to think about. The company, the recovery from Charlotte's attack, Luke's attempt to clean himself up, and the pressure of keeping everything from collapsing while still pretending he was okay. But underneath it all, the question still sat there, stuck to his ribs. Then one night it came knocking. He had just gotten home. It was late. He tossed his keys on the table, dropped into the couch, and leaned back with his eyes closed. The room was dim, quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator down the hall. His phone buzzed. Emily. He stared at the screen for a second, debating whether to answer. He let it go to voicemail. 10 seconds later, another buzz. Emily is calling. He sighed, picked it up, and answered without even saying hello. Her voice was quiet, nervous. Can we talk? In person? Nathan rubbed his forehead. About what? I think I know who the father is. He froze. Come over, he said. 20 minutes later, she knocked. She looked different. Not just tired, smaller, worn down in a way he hadn't seen before. No makeup, hair tied back, hoodie and leggings. She didn't look like the woman who used to plan every outfit and every word. She looked like someone who wasn't pretending anymore. He didn't invite her to sit, just stood near the kitchen, arms crossed. She held a folder in her hand, like she couldn't show up empty. He didn't care what was in it. Talk, he said. She took a shaky breath. I went back through my calendar, my appointments, my cycle, everything. I talked to the doctor again. I needed to be sure. And? Nathan asked, sharp. She swallowed hard. It's Gavin. Nathan didn't react. He just stared at her. You're sure? He said flatly. She nodded. I had the dates all wrong. I was so certain it was you because I wanted it to be. But after the test came back and you weren't the father, I started looking deeper, and there's no way it's Luke. I hadn't been with him during that time, not once. Nathan looked away, jaw clenched. He doesn't know, she added quickly. I haven't told him. Nathan sat down slowly, like his legs gave out from under him. Jesus Christ. She stayed quiet. Gavin, the man Nathan trusted with everything. His right-hand guy, the one who stayed late, traveled with him, took calls when Nathan couldn't. Gavin had seen him at his worst, heard things other people didn't, and all that time he was sleeping with his wife, and now Gavin was the father of the child she said might have been Nathan's. How long? Nathan asked. His voice was tight. It was one night, Emily said. I swear, one night that ruined everything, he said, laughing bitterly. I know, she whispered, and I have to live with that. He stood back up, pacing now. So let me get this straight. You cheated on me with my brother, lied about it for a year. Then it turns out you were also sleeping with my assistant, and the child you swore was mine is actually his. And you're just now telling me this? I didn't know, she said. You didn't want to know. She didn't argue. You know what's crazy? Nathan said, turning toward her. I was starting to feel okay again. I was finally moving forward, but you just couldn't leave it alone, could you? You had to drop this on me too. I thought you deserved to know. No, what I deserved was the truth. A year ago, not a scavenger hunt where every step leads to another lie. Tears were falling from her eyes now, but he didn't care. He was too tired, too done. What are you going to do? She asked. He looked at her like she'd lost her mind. What do you mean, what am I going to do? I'm not involved in this anymore. This is your mess. Yours and Gavin's. She nodded. I know. You going to tell him? She hesitated. I don't know. Nathan narrowed his eyes. You still care about him? No, she said quickly. Not like that. I don't know how he'll take it. He doesn't deserve to know, right? Same way I didn't? She didn't respond. Nathan walked to the door and opened it. You should go. She stood still for a second, then walked past him. As she stepped outside, she paused. I'm sorry. He didn't say anything. She looked at him one last time. I really did love you. He looked back at her, but the man who once held space for that feeling was long gone, and without a word he closed the door. Then he sat on the floor, leaned his head back against the wall, and stared at the ceiling until his eyes burned. So that was it. Gavin. Of all people. And for the first time in this whole mess, Nathan didn't feel sad or broken. He felt nothing, just empty. And somehow, that was worse. Nathan barely left his place for 3 days after Emily told him the truth. He wasn't hiding. He just needed the silence. The real kind. Not the fake quiet people sit in while scrolling their phones or half listening to music in the background. He turned everything off. No TV, no calls, no news, no emails. Just stillness. The kind that forces you to feel every part of what's broken. Every thought, every breath, every beat of your heart when it feels like it's been stepped on and taped back together too many times. At first, he thought he was just angry. And yeah, there was anger. Plenty of it. But that wasn't the thing that held him down. It was something heavier, something slower, a deep exhaustion that came from carrying too many disappointments for too long, from replaying moments he wished he could erase, from holding on to things that were already gone. By day 4, he got up, showered, and walked outside. No plan, no phone. Just a jacket, his keys, and the chill of early morning hitting his face like a slap that didn't hurt but still woke him up. He didn't even realize where he was going until he turned onto the street where he and Emily used to live. The old townhouse. The place they used to come home to after long work days or awkward family dinners or nights out where they laughed too loud and didn't care who was watching. It looked the same. Same white trim. Same little cracked step near the porch that never got fixed. There was a light on inside. Curtains drawn. New people lived there now. He stood across the street and stared at it for a while. Not because he missed it. He didn't. But because it reminded him of the man he used to be. The one who tried so hard to make things perfect. Who thought love meant holding on, even when everything around you screamed, let go. It started raining, soft and steady. Nathan didn't move. Eventually he walked. Block after block. Street after street. Past the cafe where Emily first told him she wanted to take a step back from her career to focus on them. Past the park where they once argued in the middle of a sunny afternoon because he didn't want to cancel a meeting just to look at baby strollers. Past the tiny bookstore she used to drag him into even though she never finished a single novel. He saw every version of them along the way. Every piece of a life that, for a while, he believed was real. By the time he made it back home, his shoes were soaked and his clothes clung to his skin. But his chest felt lighter. Not fixed. Not healed. Just lighter. Later that night, he sat on the edge of his bed, holding a small wooden box he hadn't touched in years. It was one of those boxes people keep because they think it's sentimental, but it's really just a container of weight. Inside were pictures, birthday cards, an old bracelet Emily gave him on their 2nd anniversary. A note she wrote on a napkin that said, "Don't be late tonight. I made lasagna." He looked at every item like it belonged to someone else. A couple that didn't exist anymore. Maybe never really did. He closed the box, put it back on the shelf. Then he grabbed a trash bag and went through his closet. Shirts she bought, jackets she loved, things he only wore because they reminded him of her. He tossed them in without thinking too much. He went into the bathroom and threw out her old shampoo bottle that somehow still sat there even though she hadn't used it in months. A toothbrush she forgot, or maybe left on purpose. Gone. The next morning, he called the storage unit company and canceled the lease on the space where they had furniture from the old townhouse. Told them to donate it, all of it. Then he did the hardest thing. He opened his phone and pulled up her name in his favorites. He removed it. She wasn't his emergency contact. She wasn't the voice he wanted to hear at the end of a bad day. She wasn't his anymore, and he wasn't hers. That evening, he cooked for himself for the first time in weeks. Nothing fancy, just pasta and chicken. He cleaned the kitchen after, took out the trash, played music, something soft, not sad, not angry, just background. And then he did something he hadn't done in a long time. He opened the window, sat on the couch with his legs up, and breathed. Not waiting for a call, not checking the time, not wondering if someone was about to knock on his door and change everything again. Just breathing. That night, as he lay in bed, eyes open in the dark, he felt something unfamiliar. Not peace, not yet, but something like it. Like the beginning of peace, the start of letting go. Nathan didn't wake up to a big moment. There was no dramatic sunrise, no deep realization that everything was better now. He just opened his eyes one Thursday morning, looked around the quiet apartment, and realized he wasn't angry. He wasn't replaying old arguments in his head. He wasn't thinking about who hurt him or why. He just wanted coffee, and that was something. The apartment looked different now. Same walls, same furniture, but it felt cleaner, lighter, like the energy had shifted. The tension that used to hang in the air like smoke was gone. It wasn't just because Emily was out of his life or because Luke was finally trying to fix himself. It was because Nathan had stopped clinging to what broke him. He made breakfast, opened the windows, let the sun in. He didn't check his phone every 5 minutes anymore. And when he did, there were no half-dreaded messages from people trying to pull him back into drama. The business was steady. Charlotte was out of the picture. Gavin had vanished into whatever hole he crawled into. The board had his back. He was finally standing on his own again. Still, starting over didn't mean jumping into something new right away. Nathan wasn't in a rush. He wasn't looking for someone to fix things or fill a space. What he wanted was to get to know himself again, without the noise, without someone else's needs in his ear every second. So he started small. He picked up running. Not the competitive, tracking pace and heart rate kind. Just running around his neighborhood in the early mornings, hoodie on, headphones in, breathing heavy, watching the world wake up around him. It cleared his head in a way nothing else had. He got back into cooking, not just frozen meals or quick takeout. Real food, chopping, stirring, music playing in the background. No phones at the table, no distractions. One night he even sat on the floor with a glass of wine, sorting through old boxes he hadn't touched since the move. Things from childhood, high school, college, letters he never mailed, pictures that made him laugh. He kept some, threw the rest out. He called his mom more, texted cousins he hadn't seen in years. He even met his niece for ice cream one Sunday, just the two of them. She was 6 and asked 100 questions. He didn't have answers for most of them, but it felt good, simple, human. Work got better too. Not just because the business bounced back, it did, but because he showed up different, more grounded, more present. He wasn't snapping at employees or zoning out in meetings. He was rebuilding his reputation, not through flashy moves, but by just doing the work, being there. Then one day, while waiting in line at a coffee shop, something unexpected happened. A woman dropped her wallet. Simple moment. She didn't notice. Nathan picked it up, tapped her on the shoulder. "Hey, this yours?" She turned, surprised, smiled. "Oh my God, thank you, I didn't even notice." He handed it to her. Their eyes met for a second too long. "No problem," he said. She smiled again. "Well, that's my dose of luck for the day." He chuckled. "Glad I could help." She looked like she was about to say something else. Then her drink was ready. She took it, gave him a final smile, and left. It was quick, normal, nothing dramatic. But it stuck with him. Not because she was beautiful. She was. Not because he was ready to date again. He wasn't sure he was. But because for the first time in a long time, he noticed someone without comparing her to someone else. That felt huge. That weekend, Nathan went to the beach. Alone. No plans. No expectations. He packed a chair, a book, and a cooler. Sat there for hours. Toes in the sand. Ocean breeze on his face. He thought about everything. About what he'd been through. About how easy it is to lose yourself in someone else's lies. How hard it is to admit when something's over. And how strong you have to be to not just survive it, but come out of it better. He didn't cry. He didn't smile either. He just let the waves do their thing. He didn't need to make sense of every moment anymore. He didn't need closure from everyone. Some people weren't sorry. Some people never would be. That was okay. That night, back home, Nathan lit a candle, poured himself a drink, and sat on the balcony. The city was quiet, lights glowing in the distance. He looked out at it all and didn't feel small. He felt ready, not for a new relationship, not for some perfect life, just ready to be him again. No pretending, no holding back, no carrying what wasn't his. Starting over didn't mean forgetting. It just meant he wasn't stuck anymore. And for the first time in a long time, he actually looked forward to tomorrow. It had been almost 3 months since everything blew up. Nathan had rebuilt his life piece by piece, steady and quiet. No chaos, no drama. He didn't hear from Emily anymore. Charlotte was dealing with her legal mess. Gavin had disappeared. Luke was still showing up to his group meetings and sending short, dry text updates now and then. And Nathan? He finally felt free. He had his focus back. The business was strong again. He was sleeping through the night, laughing at things again, living like a man who'd survived something brutal and finally made it to the other side. So when the email came in, it didn't hit him right away. It was just sitting there, buried under a few work updates and a lunch reminder. Subject: for Nathan, private medical record request. The sender was a small lab, one he didn't recognize. He clicked it open, figuring maybe it was a follow-up to one of the paternity tests, something lingering in the system that just hadn't been cleared out. But as soon as he read the first line, his whole body locked up. This is a courtesy copy of the recent follow-up paternity screening requested for Nathan Keller, Emily Keller, and Child X, initials AK. Please see attached report. Follow-up. Child X. Initials AK. He froze. He hadn't requested another test. Nobody told him anything about this. The original test had already confirmed he wasn't the father. So why was he getting this now? His chest tightened. He clicked the PDF. The report loaded. 1 page, clean and clear, with bold black lines showing the match percentages. He read it once, then again, then a third time, and his hands started shaking. Result: probability of paternity, 99.998%. Conclusion: Nathan Keller is the biological father of the child. He pushed back from the desk like it had burned him. His chair hit the wall. He stood there in the middle of the room, heart pounding. This had to be wrong. Some kind of mistake. He'd already seen the first test. Emily had seen it too. They'd both accepted it. She told him it was Gavin's, she was sure. But this test was dated just 2 days ago. His phone was already in his hand, dialing the lab's number before he could stop himself. He didn't even know what he was going to say, just that he needed someone to explain what the hell was going on. A woman answered, calm, polite. Hi, yes. I got a report this morning. My name is Nathan Keller. It says I'm the biological father of a child I was told I wasn't related to. Can you just double-check something for me, please? The woman asked for the confirmation code at the top of the report. He read it out, word for word. She put him on hold for maybe 2 minutes, the longest 2 minutes of his life. When she came back, her voice hadn't changed. Yes, sir. I've confirmed the results were processed in our system. The request was submitted by the mother on file, Emily Keller. She requested a secondary test to be run using updated DNA samples. The results were finalized 2 days ago. He stared ahead, completely still. Emily sent in another test? He asked, voice low. Yes, sir. Would you like a printed copy mailed to you as well? No, he said. That's fine. He hung up. He sat back down slowly, feeling like the floor had shifted under him. He went to his messages, pulled up Emily's name, and just stared at it. His thumb hovered over it. Then he put the phone down. He couldn't breathe, couldn't even think straight. Why would she lie? Why would she tell him the baby wasn't his? Twice, when all this time it was. And then, all at once, it clicked. The first test, the way she cried after they read the result, the way she avoided talking about it afterward, how fast she said it must be Gavin's, how nervous she looked when he asked if she was sure, how she backed off, fast, like she didn't want to discuss it anymore. Had she known? Had she lied? Or was the first test wrong? Or, worse, had someone switched the results? His stomach dropped. There was only one person who had full access to everything back then. Full access to his schedule, his doctor contacts, his house. Gavin. Gavin, who had access to his mail. Gavin, who handled private records and inboxes. Gavin, who already knew Emily. Gavin, who was trying to move up. Gavin, who had everything to gain if Nathan thought the baby wasn't his. Nathan stood up, eyes wide, heart pounding like a drum in his chest. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a setup that had worked. For months, he'd walked away, let go, started over, and now he realized he'd been tricked. The baby wasn't Gavin's. The baby was his child, and he'd been kept away from that child by lies, by manipulation, by people he once trusted more than anyone. His hands were clenched at his sides, nails digging into his palms. He needed answers. Not later. Now. He picked up the phone and dialed Emily. No answer. He called again, and again, straight to voicemail. He sent a text. We need to talk. Right now. I saw the test. 10 minutes passed. No reply. He drove. Fast. No music. No thinking. By the time he pulled up to her building, it was already dark. Her car was outside. The lights were on upstairs. He didn't even knock when he got to her door. He rang once, twice, then a third time, harder. The door opened slowly. Emily stood there, her face pale. You saw it, she said quietly. His voice was shaking. How long have you known? She hesitated, looked away. Emily, how long have you known? She looked up at him, eyes red, since the beginning. Nathan's chest felt like it caved in. She kept going, voice soft, breaking. The first test, Gavin had it switched. I didn't know until after, and then I didn't say anything. I didn't fix it. I let you believe it because I didn't think you'd ever forgive me for everything else. I thought it would be easier, for both of us. He took a step back, like her words hit him physically. You let me think I had no child. You watched me walk away from my own kid. I didn't know what else to do, she cried. Everything was falling apart. That wasn't your choice to make, he said, voice cracking. I'm sorry, she whispered. He didn't respond. He couldn't. His eyes were already filling up. He turned and walked away, but not before she said one last thing. She's 5 months now, Emily said. Her name is Anna. He froze at the elevator. Anna. That one word cracked something wide open inside him. His daughter had a name, a face, a whole life he hadn't been allowed to be part of. And now everything had changed. Again.